And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Avishai Cohen, his biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about more of his best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. The first one's called Big Vicious, released in 2020. This is Avishai letting his wild side out. Imagine jazz crashing into rock, electronic beats, even trip-hop vibes. It's like if Pink Floyd and Massive Attack invited a trumpet to the party. You've got covers like Teardrop, even Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, but twisted into these dreamy psychedelic soundscapes. It's cinematic, moody, but also super fun, like a late-night drive through neon lights. Another album called Naked Truth, released in 2022. This is the opposite. Instead of all those layers, it's stripped way down. Just quiet, minimal, almost spiritual. He literally recorded it as a meditation during the pandemic. 8 little interconnected pieces, and at the end he even recites a poem. It feels like time slows down when you listen. An album called Triveni 2, released in 2012. This one is raw energy, just trumpet, bass and drums in a trio format. No fluff, no polish, just dynamic live music. They're tearing through originals, plus wild takes on Mingus, Ornette Coleman, Dizzy Gillespie. It's basically like being in a live jazz club with musicians going all out. The trumpet screams, growls, whispers. It's Avishai unleashed. So that was a quick recap of what's coming up during this hour, and this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Avishai Cohen, his biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about more of his best albums of all time. The first one's called Big Vicious. This album is wild. This isn't just jazz anymore, it's jazz meeting rock, electronic, ambient, even trip-hop, all wrapped together in this lush, hypnotic soundscape. What's super cool is how collaborative it is. He didn't just lead the band, he built Big Vicious as a collective. So you get this amazing sense of group energy and creativity. It's democratic but still totally cohesive. Every musician contributes and it feels like a living, breathing organism. And the textures, the album layers psychedelic sounds, ethereal synths, and structured grooves in ways that are seriously cinematic. Take Honey Fountain for instance. It slowly builds, Cohen's trumpet soaring over these Pink Floyd-esque soundscapes. It's dreamy, it's immersive, and it just sweeps you away. Then there's Teardrop, which is his genius reinterpretation of the Massive Attack classic. Cohen's trumpet becomes the vocals, weaving the melody while dub-style grooves pulse underneath. It's haunting and mesmerizing. And Moonlight Sonata, he takes Beethoven's iconic piano piece and transforms it into this layered canvas where ghostly guitars and delicate percussion mingle with his expressive trumpet. It's melancholic and magical. Tracks like King Katna and Fractals show off the album's range. The former track begins with rock energy before dissolving into abstraction. The latter mingles Indian modal tones with ambient resonance. Reviewers love it for its bold textures and emotional trumpet, even if some think it's less adventurous than other projects. Honestly, Big Vicious is one of Cohen's most accessible yet inventive works. It's this multi-genre adventure where the group feels alive, the soundscapes are layered and captivating, and Cohen's trumpet guides you through it all. If you ever want to hear jazz pushed to the edge without losing its heart, this is it. Pure sonic magic. Another album called Naked Truth. This is just on another layer of intimacy. Imagine this. Cohen basically took the idea of less is more and ran with it. Like every note, every pause, every breath counts. It's minimalistic, meditative, and honestly feels like stepping into a quiet, sacred space. This album came out of the pandemic, so you can imagine the reflection and solitude pouring into it. It's a 2-year meditation captured in sound. There are only 8 parts, each unfolding slowly with delicate improvisations, and by the end, you feel like you've been on this reflective journey alongside him. ECM really nailed the production here. And the emotional texture is incredible. Critics call it his quietest but most daring work. Cohen's trumpet along with Jonathan Avishai on piano, Barak Mori on bass, and Ziv Ravitz on drums create this insanely intuitive, almost telepathic interplay. The music is austere but immersive, and each tiny variation feels meaningful. There's restraint everywhere, but it's powerful restraint. It makes the silence as expressive as the notes. So this album is like a deep breath for your soul. It's intimate, refined, meditative, and poetic all at once. If you want to hear music that speaks through silence and subtlety, this is it. It's not flashy or loud, it's quiet, but it leaves this lingering emotional imprint that you feel long after the album ends. An album called Triveni 2. This album is amazing. It's Cohen playing alongside an acoustic trio with Omar Avital on bass and Nashi Waits on drums. No frills, no electronics, just raw live energy, and it feels like they're performing right in front of you. Every track crackles with spontaneity. You can almost hear the electricity between them. Cohen's trumpet here is fierce, unfiltered, and full of emotion. Jazz Times talks about the raw passion he's playing, and that's spot on. Take Safetyland for instance. The rhythm section lays down this relentless, almost thunderous groove, and Cohen just launches into these impassioned trumpet eruptions. It's visceral, daring, and so alive, you feel every note in your chest. What's really cool is the repertoire. They're not just doing Cohen originals. The trio dives into pieces by legends like Mingus, Dizzy Gillespie, Don Cherry, and Ornette Coleman. But instead of just covering them, they reimagine these classics with this high voltage urgency that makes everything feel fresh and unpredictable. Every interpretation is a new adventure. You never know where Cohen's trumpet will take you next. Triveni too is one of those albums that just grabs you from the very first note and doesn't let go. It's raw, daring and completely alive, with an intensity that only a trio playing off each other this tightly can achieve. If you want to hear Cohen at his most unrestrained and totally in the moment, this is the perfect album. And that was some insight into more of Avishai Cohen's best albums of all time, and you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We are going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. Here's Avishai Cohen with One for Mark. That was Cab Calloway with Heidi Homan, Bessie Smith with Trombone Charlie, Groove Collective with Undercover Life, Blair Bryant with Morning Prayer, Horace Silver with I Got the Blues in Santa Cruz, and Avishai Cohen with One for Mark. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Avishai Cohen, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trendy music news. Tom Cohen, the Philly drummer, is dropping something really special in October 10th. His new album, Embraceable Brazil, is basically a love little bossa nova. It's been over a decade in the making. He's been crafting this thing slowly with rotating lineups of American and Brazilian musicians, taking his time to really get it right. It's like he's been curating this lush, intricate soundscape for years. The album's 13 tracks are pure magic. He does the classics like Jobim's The Girl from Ipanema, Milton Nascimento's Tarde, but with his own twists. There's even a bossa nova take on Carly Simons' You're So Vain and Pat Martino's Joyous Lake. It's playful, unexpected and deeply musical, a total playground for the ears. What's incredible is that Cohen's love for bossa nova started as a kid in Newark. His parents were playing Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66 around the house. He even saw Dave Brubeck live at 10. He's mingled all that lifelong passion with serious chops and experience from Philly's jazz scene, working with legends like Orrin Evans, Joey DeFrancisco, and studying with Tony Williams. This isn't just another jazz album. It's a vibrant, inventive, heartfelt homage to Brazilian music, filtered through his unique vision. If you love drums, bossa nova, or just brilliant musicianship, Embraceable Brazil is going to be one you have to spin from start to finish. And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Avishai Cohen, his biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. The first one's called At Home, released in 2009. This one is all about rhythm and groove. It's jazz but with Mediterranean and world funk vibes layered in. Think sharp drum grooves, flowing piano, and this big colorful ensemble energy. It feels lively, earthy, and super global, like you're sitting in a courtyard with musicians from all over trading stories through sound. Another one called Songs of the Ancestors, released in 2003. This is earlier Cohen, but you can already hear that cross-cultural vision. It's got Middle Eastern motifs, African grooves, and this almost ancestral storytelling feel to it. The cool part? It's both brainy and dancey. Jazz Times once called it an intellectual party music, and that's exactly it. It's grounded in tradition but still feels adventurous and alive. An album called Duende, released in 2012. This is the most intimate of the three. Just bass and piano, no extras. It's soft, lyrical and kind of glowing in its simplicity. They weave in folk touches, classical flavors, even reinterpret jazz standards, but it all feels delicate and heartfelt, like two old friends just sitting down to play and every note feels personal. And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Avishai Cohen, his biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about more of his best albums of all time. The first one's called At Home. This album is such a vibe. So this is Cohen working with his group Third World Love, and what's amazing here is how he blends jazz with all these folk and Mediterranean flavors without it ever feeling forced. It's like he's painting this rich multicultural soundscape, and every track has its own personality. One of the things that really stands out is the rhythm. Jazz Times actually points out to how Cohen is crafting this global strain of modern jazz that places primacy on rhythm, and they are not kidding. The drumming by Mark Juliana is insane. He's going from breakbeat grooves in Renault's Last Tooth to classic backbeats in Saba, keeping the momentum constantly moving. And Sam Bash on piano and organ complements it perfectly, giving the music fluidity and color. The interplay between them feels spontaneous but completely tight, like they've been playing together forever. And the instrumentation. This album is packed with colors. Diego Ocola on trumpet, Yosvani Terry on sax, Ann Drummond on flute, plus percussion is Jeff Bollard and Thomas Zhu. Each voice has its moment, and the way they interweave gives the album this vibrant, energetic feel. Some tracks feel almost improvised, like the musicians are exploring together in real time, while others have a composed, reflective structure that makes the journey dynamic and exciting. What's so cool is that it doesn't feel like just jazz. It's jazz filtered through the world. You get these nods to folk, world rhythms and Mediterranean motifs, but it's all balanced with tight compositions and clever improvisation. It's bold, groovy and surprisingly cohesive for such a diverse palette. At Home is one of those albums that makes you want to put on headphones, close your eyes, and just get swept up in the rhythms, the textures and the sheer energy of Cohen and his ensemble. It's playful, sophisticated and absolutely alive. The next one's called Songs of the Ancestors. So this is him with Third World Love again, and honestly it's like he's taking jazz and letting it dance with the world. Middle Eastern motifs, African rhythms, ancestral storytelling, it all mixes together in a way that's both intellectually stimulating and just so much fun to move to. Imagine jazz that makes you think and makes you want to tap your feet at the same time. The ensemble here is electric. Cohen on trumpet, Omar Avital on bass, Daniel Friedman on drums, and Jonathan Avishai on piano. They all have this incredible chemistry. Jazz Times even calls it the intellectual party music, which is spot on. You get these layered rhythms that feel ancient and urgent, yet the improvisation is fresh and modern. It's like each track tells a story and Cohen's trumpet is a narrator, bold, expressive, and full of this tantalizing, slightly tart tone that just cuts through the textures. Even though the formal reviews are a bit scarce, the buzz around the live performances says it all. People describe them as vibrant, dance-inducing, and full of energy. And you can really hear how this period set the foundation for Cohen's later work. His melodic sensibility, his knack for fusing cultural influences with jazz improvisation, and his fearless approach to ensemble interplay all start shining here. Songs of the Ancestors feels like a musical bridge between tradition and innovation. It's adventurous, rooted, and full of life. You can almost imagine sitting in a packed venue, feeling the pulse of the rhythms and being completely swept away by Cohen's trumpet leading the charge. An album called Duendi. This one's like sitting in a cozy sunlit room and hearing two friends just play and talk through music. It's Avishai Cohen on bass and Nitai Hershkovitz on piano. And honestly, the intimacy here is unreal. Everything feels so organic, like the instruments are breathing together. What's magical about this album is how Cohen blends folk melodies with jazz, classical, and Middle Eastern resonances. John Fordham called it the perfect Avishai Cohen album. Baroque-inspired passages and walking bass lines supporting playful piano lines. It's subtle, delicate, and absolutely mesmerizing. Hershkovitz is right there, matching Cohen note for note, phrase for phrase. All About Jazz really highlights how egalitarian the duo feels. Each has their own voice, their own nuance, whether they are performing Cohen originals or inventive takes on standards like Monk's Crisscross or Coltrane's Central Park West. It's a dialogue, not a solo show. Cohen's bass work is so expressive. You can really feel his voice through it all. Jazz Times talks about his arco droning and lyrical phrasing, and honestly, it's like the bass itself is speaking. Even when he's comping behind Hershkovitz, it carries emotional weight and melodic beauty. The entire album has its organic charm. It flows naturally through themes and standards without ever feeling forced. It's introspective, elegant, and full of subtle surprises. Duende is one of those albums that makes you slow down and just listen. It's intimate, radiant, and profoundly moving. A perfect example of Cohen's melodic depth and his uncanny ability to connect through the music. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Avishai Cohen, his biography, and best hits. We've come to an end of this week's episode of the Jazz Update, so now it's time to recap what we're discussing during this program. Avishai was born in 1970 in Israel, grew up surrounded by Spanish, Greek, and Polish roots. He started on piano, but then at age 14, he picked up the bass. By the early 90s, he's in New York, grinding, playing on the streets, even doing construction until Chick Corea spots him. That was his big break. He spent years in Korea's band, sharpening his sound, and then launched his insane solo career that mingles jazz with Middle Eastern, Latin, classical, basically everything. Fast forward to now, and he's won huge awards, founded his own label, even does orchestral collaborations. So that was a bit of insight into his biography. Now let's talk about some of his best albums of all time. The first one's called Triveni 2, released in 2012. This is Avishai at his raw, stripped down best. It's just trumpet, bass, and drums, no piano, so it feels really open and alive. The entire thing is about conversation between three players, and Avishai just soars. There's this mix of standards and originals, but everything feels fresh, spontaneous, like you're attending a live jam session. Another album called Big Vicious, released in 2020. This is a whole different vibe. Big Vicious mingles jazz with rock, ambient, even a touch of trip-hop. It's atmospheric, guitars, electronics, textures, and Avishai's trumpet just floats over it all like a voice from another world. Some tracks are moody and cinematic, others groove in this modern, almost post-rock way. It's one of those albums that feels made for late-night drives or zoning out under the stars. An album called Into the Silence, released in 2016. This one is personal. Avishai wrote it after his father passed away, and you can feel the grief, the reflection, but also the beauty of healing in the music. It's lyrical, spacious, and hauntingly tender. It feels like he's talking straight to the listener's heart without even using words. And that was a quick recap of everything that we discussed on this week's episode of the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. And that brings me to an end of this week's episode of the program. Don't forget, you can check out the archives of today's show on my YouTube channel, The Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan. So I'll see you again next week. Have a great week ahead.